period. I mean, I feel like you're talking about something that's like 20 steps down the road, after the government's been created. That doesn't negate the fact that it's still been created based on and built on a foundation of theft. So, I mean, I don't know. Do you believe in this theft to create a government to have your, and why don't we also go back and you can explain to me what this social contract is? I don't understand that.
Okay. So, but you didn't answer the question. And let me try it again. What I asked you specifically, and this is the definition of statism. A statist.
This is the definition of statism. He's asserting that a word has an objective definition, which is not true. Language is a lossy thought compression algorithm. You have to be concerned when you're talking to anybody. And this is great relationship advice too, guys. Like when you're talking to somebody that you care about, you need to be concerned with the concepts in their brain that they're trying to squeeze through the air into your brain, not about the words they use to get it through the air. Like try and think into the other person's brain. What this guy's doing is, these are the objective meanings of the air vibrations that I'm going to send at James. And, if he doesn't agree with my concepts, then I win the debate or something. Like this is not how communication works. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah, and I could see that too. And that's why, like I said, there are a lot of things that I knew about this guy where he's not going to digress on any of this. And so, I believe I try to work off of his definition then. And I think at some point I say, well, then my definition is this. So I think we address that at some point.
Cool. Yeah. All right.
Believes that the power of the people should be given to the government and the government should have more power. A statist believes that we should fund government apparatus to have power over us, that we want to give more power to government and less power to the people. Now, okay. I think that that we shouldn't even have the term, that we should create a new system for peace officers to respect your rights. And that would mean taking money away from the current system and creating a different system that would be based on only holding your rights as the bar, right? So that means I want to take money away. I want to defund police completely and start a new organization. And it'll be a transition period as we go from the horrible one that hasn't worked to a new one called transparency. And we're not getting into that. But I want to take money away from the government. There you go, James. Now I can see it. I want to take money away from the government and give it to the people. So how am I a statist?
Okay, I'm still going to have to ask a question. You're going to get rid of the police and you're going to create this other system where you're still going to have people enforcing rule of law, right?
No, not enforcing rule of law. Rights.
Enforcing rights. Sorry, enforcing rights.
Upholding rights. The terminology means everything. Okay.
And where are you going to get the money to fund that?
So right now where I'm at, there's a dozen different police agencies over this. And so it's total chaos. When they call out to a house, you'll have 6 different agencies respond, and then you'll see a bunch of pigs standing around. You pointed that out in Mesa when they arrested the guy for jaywalking, and they were filming promoting some guy running for office, and they had 24 cops all standing around with their Johnson in their hand going, oh, we really got that jaywalker. It was ridiculous. And we spent how much? Hundreds of thousands of dollars on that one case. I'm for taking the money away from those people and creating a new agency called transparency. Now, what that is doesn't matter. But my principle is to defund police and fund new apparatus that are based on total camera transparency.
Non-coercively funding, it sounds like?
That's exactly what I'm trying to get to, because right, because that is the core of, well, are you a statist or are you not? And he really wants me to answer this question, that he's not a statist because he wants to get rid of the police and create this new system with the same exact thing that police have always been, although he doesn't realize that's what he's saying. And so my only question, is, do you want to fund it through theft or voluntarily? If you want to do it through theft, you are a statist. If you don't, you are not.
Yeah, there's 2 questions.
I don't know if we ever got there.
Yeah, this goes to the objectivist position as well. I don't know if you're familiar with Ayn Rand's objectivism, but she is like the consistent end result of her philosophy is anarcho-capitalism. But she's a holdout. She's not consistent. She wants the police to exist. She wants there to be a monopoly on law enforcement. But like this guy, she wants the police she wants all the laws to be basically erased except for the ones that protect rights. And so the only thing the cops would do is protect rights, and her police wouldn't even be paid for coercively. However, and the challenge where objectivists break down is the second question that I would ask this guy: if I try and compete with your police, will you use force to stop me? If I try and offer alternative dispute resolution or protection services, are you going to stop me? Are you going to use force to keep a monopoly on that service? And that would be interesting to see.
Do you think it?
Go ahead.
Do you think it would be necessary first to establish whether he wants to, how he wants to fund this new force, and then after that, kind of address, what if I try to compete and?
Yeah.
So how am I a statist?
Will Cox says, I paid $20K to beat my gun case in Cali. No one helped me, and this guy asked for people to send him money to fund what I was fighting against. Shaking my head. I don't know. I mean, so far. And until James asked him the funding question, so far he's talking about cops that only actually protect rights, which would mean that they couldn't be paid for coercively. Otherwise, they're definitionally, yeah.
I don't know if I ever convey that message either to him or to the audience properly, though. And that's why I kind of wanted to look over this and be like, okay, I know what I wanted to say. I know what I wanted to convey, but did it ever happen? And again, I don't know if I really cared to sway his mind, change his mind, but at least someone who was watching, and I don't know if I ever achieved that.
Yeah, and so like in a free society, it doesn't matter what we call these people, cops, whatever, the people that try and protect rights, whether we hire consensually, they have no additional rights than you or I have. So they're not super people that can go out and do law enforcement things that we can't do. They're just like us. It's just that, for risk purposes or training purposes, not everybody wants to go get trained in protection and security. You would want to hire somebody to do those things for you. Not everybody wants to go understand a system of jurisprudence and justice, and so that you would hire a company to handle your disputes for you. Those kinds of things. So when we talk about like cops in a free society, we're talking about something in like an entirely different beast.
Essentially private security, basically, right? That would have no rights that you wouldn't have as a property owner in the first place.
And no protections that we don't have. So if they mess up, then they're liable just like we would be if we did the same thing. Yeah.
If I want to strip money away from the powers that be.
It sounds to me like you just want to strip it from entity A and give it to entity B. And you think that new entity, and again, that's why I'm asking you, where is the money going to come from? Are you saying that you're not going to eliminate the theft that existed to create entity A, that you're going to continue that theft and that direct violation of people's rights, but you're going to use it for something that you want instead of something that somebody else wants?
Well, this is going to segue into a different conversation. And the reason why I'm trying to stay on statist, you called me a statist, and I'm for taking money away from the current regime of trolls and pigs and creating new things that are made based on the people power. However, if you're going to go into taxes all the time, then go ahead and explain to me how we wash away the 10th Amendment.
Okay. So what he did was fucking dodge the shit out of your challenge and redirect back to a question to you. I would redirect him back to your question if I were you.
Which gives the states and the federal government the right to tax, and that's been from the foundation. Which gives. Well, this is going to segue into a different conversation, and the reason why I'm trying to stay on statist, you called me a statist, and I'm for taking money away from the current regime of trolls and pigs and creating new things that are made based on the people power. However, if you're going to go into taxes all the time, then go ahead and explain to me how we wash away the 10th Amendment, which gives the states and the federal government the right to tax.
Okay. So if he believes the Constitution has just authority to do things like what he just described, by any traditional definition of the word statist, he is one. Like he just lost the debate about being a statist right there just now. Like if he thinks the Constitution that no one alive has signed has some kind of binding authority, it's over.
There are some things I noticed afterwards too about how he wanted to define a statist, because again, we can, I want to know what the ideas are that are in his head that he's trying to portray. So he was trying to tell me, though, that a statist is someone who wants to take more people and give more power to the government. And to me, it's almost as if it was relative. Like, okay, well, if I live in the US and I want it to be more North Korea, then I'm a statist. I mean, I guess it's relative to that right now, then, in his mind, whether he's a statist or not. Which, I mean, I think personally, I think is an invalid definition of what a statist is, but I still kind of tried to want to get to where he was.
New things that are made based on the people power. However, if you're going to go into taxes all the time, then go ahead and explain to me how we wash away the 10th Amendment.
How we wash away the 10th Amendment is the way that is phrased. Talks about it as something that exists, is tangible, is in the way. How we wash away the 10th Amendment is by continuing to ignore it like I already do. I am not bound by the 10th Amendment. I am my own person. I didn't sign shit, to put it in Lysander Spooner's words. I'm surprised if he's read Rousseau and Locke. I'm surprised he hasn't read Lysander Spooner. I would be surprised if he hasn't.
The thing is also that he's mentioned that he wants to get rid of, I believe it's the 16th Amendment, but not the 10th. And so I never called him on that or said anything about it, which I definitely should have. But he talked about trying to get rid of one amendment. But then, as you see right there, it says, well, what? Are we supposed to wash away the 10th Amendment? Wait, so it's a little inconsistency there that I never pointed out or drew any attention to.
I don't have any 10th Amendment on me. I don't need to wash it off. Like you might have that on, you might need a bath or something. I don't know.
Which gives the states and the federal government the right to tax. And that's been from
the right. Gives them the right to the right. I think at some point here too, I go into how they got that right. And, do I have that right? Do me and 10 people in the chat have that right? How many of us does it take to get that right? And
which is the rape island scenario, right? And this is all just social contract theory.
So much though. He does jump around so much that it's very difficult to pin down on something and really dig into any one, specific thing.
Well, he definitely didn't answer your funding questions, so hopefully that's sad.
That's been from the foundation of our country's been built. Do you
our country? Whoa! No collectivism. It's your country.
Okay,
I'm not part of it.
Good job.
Are you a sovereign citizen?
I'm not. I'm just James.
Good answer. I don't know what you mean by sovereign citizen. I'm just James. That's exactly what I would have said.
James free range slave man.
That's right.
You're not for. So if God forbid something happens to your second, third cousin, whatever, I don't want to, someone you love and care about, and they get hit by a car and they die, who's going to take the body?
Patrick, look at how far off the rails we are again.
Yeah.
This was very, very difficult.
Yeah. There's a word for this. There's a word for this tactic, and a lot of people use it unconsciously. I'm trying to remember what the word is, but it's just you go all over the place, and you can't nail them down. You can't actually get an answer to anything. You can't follow a train of thought because they're just all over the place. I forgot what the word is. Jim Jesus would remember, but I forgot.
Probably friends and family, a voluntary system. So let's
you don't
go
know
back.
How he dies, but you don't know how he dies. Who's going to investigate that to see how he died?
The insurance company that I pay to cover such situations, the dispute resolution company that I pay to cover such situations.
I guess it's not going to be investigated other than through a voluntary system.
Make it real, James. I mean, this is where the rubber meets the road with all of you volunteers and all of you anarchists who just don't know what you're talking about. If your friend dies and you love your friend, and I'm 47, if I just up and die, you don't want to know how I died?
No, I definitely do. And that's sorry. I'm sorry.
See, there you go. No,
that's where volunteerism comes in, because I don't know if you've seen wait. It's my turn now. I know you like to talk a lot. It's my turn now. You asked me a question. This is where volunteerism does come in. I don't know if you've seen all those videos of people who are uncovering and bringing cars up that have been in bodies of water, lakes, rivers.
Josh for Liberty does point out a good point is volunteerist is somebody that volunteers their time to charity.
government refused to investigate, either because they're lazy or they don't have enough money or they don't want to, whatever the reason is. They failed to bring closure to the family. And these private divers are going down and in a matter of minutes doing what the government couldn't do over decades, and solving crimes and solving murders and solving these things voluntarily without taxation. See, the only difference between what you want and what I want is you want to steal from everybody to get what you want, because you think that by using the right
he hasn't said that yet. He's dodged that question, but yeah, at least you're pressing him on it.
Amount of force and the right amount of violence to take things from people, that you can create some type of utopia where nobody gets hurt, and if they do, then everybody gets restitution. That would be great, man. It really would. If nobody ever got hurt, and if people did get hurt, that everyone got the restitution that they want. You know, and a lot of times we can get that, but there's no amount of violation of people's rights. And when you take the product of someone's labor, their property from them without their consent, to say, hey, I'm taking this from you, but it's for the greater good of the people, you're violating their rights. You're building a government, you're building a system that's built on a foundation of violating people's rights. How can you expect to protect people's rights when the entire foundation is built upon the violation of them?
James, that was very well spoken. That was a great job.
Well, so first of all, the entire foundation is not based upon stealing people's rights. The 10th Amendment clearly gives the state and the federal government the right to tax.
So he's just embodying the social contract theory. So that's what you would need to address. You would need to disassemble the social contract theory.
Then that would mean that you're against the foundation of this country. You don't
Absolutely.
think that...
Absolutely. Now let's go over this. Do I have the right to levy a tax on you? Does James?
You're doing it. You're attacking the foundation of the social contract. Very well. Here we go.
Slave man have the right to say, hey, delete Lawz. I know you work hard, you provide for yourself and your family, but you know what? I have the right to tell you that you have to give me 20% of what you make. Do I have that right?
Of course not.
Okay. So what if me and we won't bring ACA in because then he might jump in, but let's say I get 10 of the people in the chat to agree with me. Hey, you know what? We get to take 20% of delete Lawz's income. We're a majority now, right? Do we now have the right to take something from you that I personally didn't have the right to take?
No, because that would be violating the very basic principle of life, liberty, and property written by John Locke. The very foundation of our country is based on three different philosophies. John Locke's life, liberty, and property, which called Lockean theory, and then Jean-Jacques
Lockean. Well, anyway,
Rousseau's social contract, which is rule of law, and then Montesquieu's book Spirit of Laws, which is checks and balances. And I would argue that the life, liberty, and property is rarely upheld if you don't have enough money, and the social contract has been completely bastardized, and checks and balances has never occurred because the federal government took all the power for themselves in the 1803 case of Marbury versus Madison. And
you're still jumping ahead, though. You're still jumping way ahead because I still haven't figured out how anyone got.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me stop here, though. I do think that I should have, at this point, like you said earlier, recognized and verbalize that I recognize how much we agree on a lot of the things that he did say there.
Yep.
Again, to let him know, hey, I'm not here to fight. We definitely agree on this. Let's go from here.
That's important to do, whether you're trying to change his mind or whether you're trying to open the audience's mind up. Because when you're making those empathetic agreements, it shows the audience that you're not wholly biased to one side. It shows that you're open-minded. It shows that you're willing to agree when the other person's right. You know, it shows you're a rational person. Wilcox says, hey guys, remember John Locke said so. Okay. Yeah.
Not the right.
What are you, retarded? So I know you're not retarded. But, what are you, Down syndrome?
To say that I get to forcibly take shit from you. Sorry. That I get to forcibly take from you what you have produced. If I don't have the right, and me and 10 other people don't have the right, how many does it take to make this immoral act of robbing you right? I mean, is it 100 of us? Is it 1,000 of us?
Hell yeah, James. Well done. Well done.
How many does it take?
Well, you haven't read the Federalist Papers, have you?
Why, did they create some magical way where it's okay for people to rob?
Yep.
Well
Yeah,
said.
okay. So it's
Whoa, yep.
is it fairy?
Okay, so then I would take the position the social contract does not exist. I see no evidence of its existence. It's on you to prove that it does. That's what I would do next. It would be like, yeah.
That's
Well,
one, or
They have
Sorry, go ahead.
the first time that he wanted to or discuss something, he had to have that with a number of people publicly on the interwebs, and it was always social contract. And so I should have known, but I really didn't. I wasn't thinking about it. I did this spur of the moment, and I was like, all right, I'll go talk to this guy. But I should have known that that was what he really did want to debate and completely addressed that. And I don't think I really ever did at all.
Yeah.
magical meetings and magical writings where they said that a federal republic or a constitutional republic would make it so that if we could tax the people to create a greater economy and a greater society that was based on food, shelter, warmth, and protection, that if we could tax people a little bit, that it would be fair. And that way,
I'm sorry, but you've got to see the insanity in this. We want to protect people's rights to their life now, which is not good. Life, their liberty, and their property. And in order to protect their life, liberty, and property, we will steal from them their property. You've got to see the insanity in trying to build a civilized society on such uncivilized behavior.
How is wealth created, James?
Topic change.
I have no idea.
How do people
Maybe
get
you can explain it to me.
Well,
What's
I mean, well, so when you have the social contract rule of law, then you're going to create something called morality. Because without the rule of law, morality doesn't exist. Without the haves versus the have-nots, then there's be no reason to steal, because I can provide myself a hut and have my girl, and then I can borrow and trade and barter. But what Rousseau pointed out so brilliantly was that if we didn't live under the rule of law, then what would happen is man would kill each other, like Thomas Hobbes said, bellium omnium contra omnes, which means a war of all men against all men. And so
that's what we have now. We are, this is when I would remind him that we are already in anarchy. It's just the largest warlords have won.
What? Okay. Would you call it anarchy, though? I mean, we're in chaos. That's for sure, because it's unpredictability, the consistency to the rules or any order. There's really no consistency to it. I mean, if I murder someone, I go to prison, but there's some people that can murder people that don't go to prison.
Yeah, it's a spicy way of saying it, but what I'm saying is, like, the reality of reality is that it's anarchy. There are no rulers. There's powerful people that choose to live by tooth and fang, like the lions, where they take what they can get with the power that they have to get it. And then there are other people that choose to associate around concepts called rights and property and peace and negotiation and consent. And no matter who associates with who, like just because there is a large gang in place doesn't mean that there still isn't any actual rulers in reality, is what I'm trying to say. Like he's conflating the just authority of the Constitution and the social contract from Rousseau with something that exists tangibly. Like there is these laws. The rule of law exists and is in operation. No. There's just a large gang that has fooled a lot of people into believing they're magic spells. But the spoiler is magic isn't real. It's just a bunch of people believe that it exists and that it's real, and so they see the magic when it happens.
We're going back to the foundation.
But you're right. The way I said it was probably confusing for a statist, which this guy is. So that would have been a bad way to say it, saying that we're already in anarchy.
Because I don't want to jump too far ahead. What I'm saying is that the foundation of America is based on three different philosophies, and those philosophies it didn't work out. It's been dog crap. But the idea, the ideology, and here's my argument, is that for the first time ever in the history of time, maybe there was a world, a million years ago we don't know about, but in our current understanding, for the first time ever, if we surround people who claim to be in authority with cameras in a 360 direction, and then the people have access to that data at all times, if they're interacted with anybody.
He's digressing again to his camera thing.
And that's why I'm laughing. I'm like, you got to be freaking kidding me, dude. Stop trying to sell your future product and get investors.
Yeah.
And this is why I didn't want to talk to Guy in the first place. I've always believed he's got, that he's got other motives.
So why'd you do it?
Anyways. Because I wanted to practice debating. I wanted to practice conveying my ideas, even if it's with somebody who I know damn well has zero intention of listening to anything I have to say whatsoever. I wanted to practice. I haven't done it in years, and I need to start doing it more. And what better person to do it with than somebody who I know is going to go completely off the rails consistently, never listen to a word that I say, and I have to try to deal with that and convince him that I have good ideas.
Phobes, thank you for the super chat. Food, shelter, warmth, protection. By your powers combined, I am Captain Statist. Lick the whole boot. Thanks for the super chat. He says, when did we sign? Isn't a contract a two-party agreement? Yeah, that's where I would try and rebase him right now. Yet again, I would try and keep shepherding him back to the crux of the disagreement here, how he funds his police. He's justifying that with social contract. You need to press him and say, the social contract doesn't exist. Where are you getting this from? I didn't sign shit. Those kinds of things.
Authority.
And throughout the entire discussion / debate, I never addressed that, which is, I think, probably my biggest fail here. Even bigger than my spicy comments at him when we agree on something, I think is failing completely to address that.
Yeah.
We'll be able to have...
Wilcock, thanks for the super chat for the first time ever. He right, different system. Joss for Liberty, $50 super chat. Thank you very much, sir. No idea why this is $49.99 and not $50. Whatever. Keep up the good work. Josh, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate your support. If you're on our Discord server, I think you are, hit me up and I'll assign you the supporter role.
Truth and justice through transparency. And the Bill of Rights...
Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The Bill of Rights will be able to be held. But if you think you're going to get rid of the 10th Amendment, then you just want to throw away the entire Constitution and the entire Bill of Rights. Would that be...
Absolutely. Positively. Toilet paper. But I mean, why would you say that I want to throw it away? Clearly, it's been thrown away. Clearly, we can see that in practice,
that already didn't work.
Philosophy all day, but in practice, do they obey the Constitution? Do they obey even the legislation, the codes, the statutes? No, of course they don't. No. So,
okay,
what difference does it make? It's a piece of paper that does absolutely nothing.
Okay, then let's talk about the gory details, like you said. Let's not talk about grandiose standing on your lectern or standing on your podium in front of your lectern. Let's talk about very specific details.
He's the one that's been trying to summon the specter of various philosophers this whole time. You've just been like, I didn't decide shit.
Detail about your system of anarchy versus the system that I promote called rule of law. And I'll ask you a question that I don't think you're going to be able to answer, but we'll see if you can. So cool. Now I believe you have a family and children. I don't want to get into details of your kids, but I do. So you have a child. You have a child.
I got 5 kids. All 5 kids that I know about with one woman. Any others? Fuck off. Leave me alone. Go ahead.
So on this road right here behind me, and it's your road, let's just say, you guys have put a rule up because there's no rule of law, so you just have rules. And so the rules on your road is that the speed limit is 20 miles an hour because you got your 5 kids playing out on the road baseball like I did when I was a kid. Because you don't let them have an iPad. You say, go outside and play. Like a good parent should, in my opinion. Okay, now someone goes screaming through your road at 90 miles an hour.
I see you cringing over there.
I've had so many of these talks. I know where he's going. This is the 3rd time that he's brought in like a potential rights violation or tragedy situation up, and he's putting it to you to answer. He wants you to give him a practical answer rather than a principle based answer. Everybody that he talks to so far has given him the principle answer, which is you can't coercively fund institutions even for your own safety. Because that's inconsistent. It's wrong. It's evil. It's turning yourself into the bad guy to protect yourself from other bad guys. And that answer is not sufficient for him. He doesn't see it as practical. This is a very common position for statists to hold. They want a practical solution for how they will be protected in absence of the government. And he's not going to be satisfied with anything you say unless it gives him a practical solution on how it will work in a free society.
I tell him that he's going to have personal responsibility. So
he will not accept that.
First of all, he builds this scenario to where basically neglected the safety of my daughter. My daughter has neglected her own safety through her own stupidity. You know, we've made a lot of mistakes for this tragic thing to happen that we shouldn't have made in the first place. And now what do we do? And I tell him, well, first off, my fucking daughter doesn't play in the street.
The first question I would ask in response would be, who owns the road? Because that's who gets to make the rules and who gets to use force to enforce those rules. And if it's your road and some asshole comes speeding along it, then you have the right to shoot that motherfucker if he's endangering your daughter. But anyway.
Okay. Yeah, no, this is the stuff I'm looking for because, I mean, obviously the road is owned by a gang of thieves and thugs, but they never had they don't really, right? They don't really own it.
Yeah, and the problem that he's trying to get you to solve for is part of the premises in his argument. He wants this government to exist, ostensibly wants this public property called roads to exist, which necessarily creates a tragedy of the commons, meaning you have an area of land that is not owned by any owner properly. The government rightfully owns nothing, and all public land is worse off for it. And this is just another problem that arises out of the roads not having an owner, somebody to make the rules and to have the just authority, the actual authority based in property, not in magic social contract paper, to enforce those rules for that property. So it's like he handed you a problem that stems from his own position and wants you to solve it. It's like, well, no, the answer is like somebody needs to own that road and make rules for it. If you know, and I'm not going to let my kid play on a road that doesn't have rules that would make sure it's a safer place for her to be, for example.
Go out to the car and what do you say? Don't drive like that in my neighborhood. I got my kids out here. You even got those little yellow things that says go slow, kids play, right? Now, that's one thing to come out there and warn me. But now let's make it real. Let's get down to the detail of an
Can we stop right there for a minute?
No, but you have to answer the question, James.
Okay, go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, like you answered the funding question. Yeah, okay. Let's be fair.
Right. Okay. So now the driver hits your kid and injures them, or the driver kills your kid. How do you get to the most important word, which is called justice? How do you get there in an anarchy system versus a rule of law system? Instead of just being grandiose philosophy, how do you get justice for what happened to your kid?
I think that
he needs to read a lot more books than the 3 it seems that he's read. You know, there's a lot of Rothbard going into to dispute resolution in a free society. Walter Block has some good books on it. Molyneux even.
I'm sure these will be listed in the description of this video afterwards, right?
Yeah, it should. Yeah, I should remember to do that. Molyneux has a practical anarchy book that goes into some of it as well.
Okay, Stefan Molyneux.
Yeah, old school Molyneux when he was actually, producing good content. Yeah,
got it. Yep, I loved past tense.
Yeah.
All right, we can go on.
Yeah.
You believe that in an anarchist system there could be no courts.
Well, what if you don't agree with what the court said?
Then you don't have to submit yourself to the jurisdiction, and that's the way that the law works. Is that you
think he's got you?
Right. So you choose not to submit to the jurisdiction. That's okay. The court's also not going to help you then when something happens to you. That's how courts used to be, actually. I don't know if you're aware of that, but
your kid's dead, James. Your kid is dead. What are you going to do about it?
Well, first off, I would have prevented the problem in the first place. One, I don't live in. Well, that's not something I would do, though. That's something statists would do because they think that they can magically control other people. See, I, first off, would take responsibility for realizing that I can't control other people. Well, at least not by telling them what to do. There are a few things that I could do. One, not live in a crowded neighborhood like that. That's one thing I could do, which I did. 2, teach my kids to stay the hell out of the street. Or 3, even if I want to control other people, I could do it through a means that would actually work, like putting speed bumps in that are so high that you just plain can't do 90 miles an hour. Now, this is assuming that I have the right to control all of this public property that's not my private property. But I mean, right from the beginning, a whole bunch of things happened that could have been prevented if people took responsibility for themselves and realized that you don't get to control other people. You can only control yourself.
That's a lot of word salad without answering the question. Guy drives
not an argument.
Drives his car through your neighborhood, comes up on your lawn, and whacks your kid, and your kid's dead. You don't agree to the jurisdiction of those judges because you're not the most popular guy in your neighborhood. So you don't want to submit your will to their jurisdiction. Now, the guy who killed your kid is me. How do you get justice? You can't answer the question. I'm waiting, though.
I don't think
he's just never talked to anybody that can actually answer this question to his satisfaction. So he's assuming that the answers don't exist. But if he went looking even a little bit, he would find plenty of books that go into it ad nauseum.
And obviously, I should have read those books too, so that I would have had a answer. Now,
hey, just
can you go into that for us here? What a good.
I mean, it's a hell of a wide and a deep topic, and I freaking love it. Just because I'm an entrepreneur, and so I mean, I can give you the 10,000 foot view, right, without like spending 20 minutes on it right now. But like, think of it like you are an entrepreneur. You want to make money. You want to start a business. Is there a need out there for security services? Is there a need out there, a demand? Is there a market demand for dispute resolution to cover situations exactly like what he's talking about? Obviously, there's a massive market demand out there, because one of the first counter arguments you always get when you talk about anarchy in a free society is, but who will build the roads? Who will pay for, who will be the cops? Who will save us when we're in trouble? Who will be the judges to solve our disputes? People demand and are freaked out by even the specter of the thought of that shit not existing. So definitely there's a demand out there for it. Now, as entrepreneurs in a free society, we have to figure out how to satisfy that demand to the standards of our customers. We have to figure out how to provide security services to our customers that is dependable, is efficacious, and actually does protect them, and is cost effective, and has insurance and bonding in place, so that if one of our private security officers goes rogue and hurts somebody, that and we get sued, that we have protections in place. And we have to also, because this is another argument that people always bring up when you talk about security in a free society. Well, what's to stop your security organization from turning into a warlord and like raising a standing army? Everyone thinks of that as a problem. So these are inherent business problems that we as entrepreneurs now have to come up with solutions for. Otherwise, we don't have a business. We don't make money. We don't have a company. So when you think about it, like, okay, let's stop like demanding everybody solve all of our problems for us. Flip it around. Hey, whatever your name is, delete Lawz. You're now the business owner. You have to try and convince people to pay you for their dispute resolution, for your dispute resolution services, for your security and protection services. And they're freaking out. They're like, well, man, what if I pay him and he just builds an army and becomes a warlord? Or what if I pay him and he's a corrupt judge? How are you going to convince your customers to trust you? You're going to build a reputation. You're going to maybe have independent review organizations audit your company often to look at all the books and to check your equipment to make sure you're not building up an army. Or if you're a judge, you're going to have an independent auditing company come in and audit all of your judgments to look for improprieties and biases and what do you call it when a judge has a conflict of interest or whatever and they need to bow out. And you're going to also probably put up like a $10 million bond in the hands of this audit company. And the moment they find a problem, whoever was harmed by the problem gets $10 million. And you're going to advertise that to your people. Look, we have this high reputation independent audit company and this massive bond out there. We want you to trust us. We work very hard. We're very open and transparent about how we do everything. You're going to come up with business plans on how to solve the demands of the people, as well as calm their fears and become trustworthy. Otherwise, you instantly lose to your competition. The moment you're a security agency and you start looking like you're building a standing army, all of your customers are going to cancel their Netflix subscription, basically. It's the same thing. Like if the moment Netflix starts building a standing army, I'm canceling that shit. Sorry, you don't get my $14 a month. And the moment they get a cancel wave, the board of directors freaks out. And they fire you as the CEO for endangering their entire company because they have a duty to their shareholders. All of these mechanisms that function to keep corporations absent government in line, it's usually through government coercion that they get out of line. All of these mechanisms function, even for things like protection and dispute resolution.
So courts essentially are dispute resolution. And so, when he made this point, the way that courts work was that you actually, even in the U.S., is that you had to submit to their jurisdiction. And what we called an outlaw was someone who refused to submit to the jurisdiction of the dispute resolution people, also called a court. And if you refuse to submit to their jurisdiction, then when you them and said, hey, I also have a problem, I'm wronged, then they say, sorry, you wouldn't submit when you wronged else. And so, we're not going to be able to help you out. I don't know how, it's, from what I understand, people who were outlaws were people who, it really didn't matter what you did to them because they had decided that they were going to live outside of respecting people's life, liberty, and property, and they weren't going to be accountable to it. Therefore, essentially, whatever you did to them didn't matter.
And there's going to continue to be people. They exist now and they will continue to exist. And you know what? Unlike now, where it's the government's job to waste a shitload of money acting like they're solving the problem, a company trying to provide security would have, a significant business incentive to be the security agency that caught that mass murderer. They would run ads and commercial campaigns showing how they were the ones that caught him because they have the best investigation crew and they had the best detectives that were able to track him down and capture him and all this stuff. Like, there's competition. If you add no other element to the current law enforcement scheme, imagine adding competition, where to keep their paychecks coming, they had to not suck constantly in every possible way because somebody else will go out and outcompete them, and people will cancel their Netflix subscription and switch to the people that are doing it right and that are not abusive and are not thieves and murderers and thugs like your channel so well shows. Sorry, I got my rant on there. Did I answer your question at all? It's complicated.
It is. Why don't we do this? What do you think is the best book to read to answer the question? And I'm going to put it in my little word pad here.
If you want a long and like grown up one,
yes.
Rothbard Machinery of Freedom is good. I'm happy to take recommendations in chat as well if you guys think of any. Practical Anarchy is another good one. That one's by Molyneux, old school Molyneux. I enjoyed that one. That's all that comes to mind now. My brain is blanking, but hopefully we've got some more recommendations in chat.
Probably, yeah. All right. That's probably enough right there, I guess.
Yeah. So,
all right, I appreciate it.
Just the last thing I'll say is he keeps asking, what are you going to do when this asshole comes and murders your kid? Everyone, just like we have homeowners insurance, just like we have car insurance, without depending on the state coercively forcing itself into our lives and monopolizing dispute resolution and security, we would necessarily want to also have insurance for catastrophic events like that. And those insurance policies very likely would have clauses or riders in them that would make sure that you had a dispute resolution company that had the capacity and means to investigate crimes and help you resolve disputes and catch murderers if they damage your family and give you a big payout if somebody hurt your family and all of the companies out there that are looking to satisfy these market demands. These are very valid demands. We're in a free society. There's no coercive monopolized security force. Somebody kills your daughter. What are you going to do? Like, obviously, most people don't want to be the detective that goes out and hunts down the killers themselves. They want people that are trained and have, the means and technology to track people down and catch them and investigate crimes. So we're going to subscribe to services that do that. And we're going to have competition vying for our money to solve those problems. That's the thing nobody thinks about.
And I think what I mentioned earlier shows that already with police in existence, we have people who are better at that. I don't know if you've seen those videos on divers who have been pulling up bodies, but the government is pissed. They come in and they are pissed that families have been asking the police department or the sheriff's department to solve their family member's murder for 10 years, 20 years. They won't do it. in a matter of weeks, these guys in and they solve the murder as soon as they get there, within an hour of getting there. You know, I mean, already with the government existing, we have better solutions through the free markets. And, you know, there's even solutions where these guys are essentially getting paid by monetizing their video on YouTube so that they're able to do it for free for the family members. So the family members aren't even having to put up the money to have this done. It's funded voluntarily through capitalism, through, you know, advertisers on their videos.
Yeah, and the advantage of that is that if one of them goes rogue or sucks, you're not stuck, you're not trapped, you're not enslaved to them like we are to the police now. You freaking cancel your subscription and move to a different company. That is almost the entire thing that government is missing is competition. Like, government could not exist if there were competition. All right, I'm hitting play.
Okay, well, I'll say this, even with your system right now, you're not getting justice. How do you get justice for a life?
That is an excellent point. One of the first things that I bring up when somebody challenges me in this way is that already doesn't work. It already doesn't work like that. The system that is in place that's coercively funded already fails in the worst way possible. So your doomsday scenario is very similar to what we already have. How confident are you that the cops would even give a shit that somebody hit your kid playing in the road? Like, are you really confident that they're not going to make the situation worse? I mean, you guys specifically, is he a cop watcher too? Like, you guys specifically would know how terrible they're going to be at that job.
Yeah, he's something, but I think you'll have to make that decision on your own by watching a collection of his work.
And he thinks cameras are going to eliminate the need for competition. You know, he thinks that you can have a coercively funded, monopolized security force, put cameras on their backs, and suddenly that's going to turn them into hardworking angels that actually care about their jobs.
Right. We have cameras on their front right now, and we go through hell trying to get those cameras. Most of the time, we don't ever get footage.
Yeah.
So I guess by also on the back, magically, the problems that we already have with existing cameras on the front and on the dashboard, and, you know, all of a sudden that's, you know, nobody will ever be harmed again, and justice will always be served.
Yep.
And that's why I keep saying that I don't think he's here to discuss or debate anything but to sell a product. Because does that have anything to do with either whether or not he's a statist or the point that he keeps trying to go back to about this social contract is a legitimate contract? This Halo camera has nothing to do with either one of those things, but he continually goes back to it.
I mean, it's great marketing. Halo camera, Angel, you know, I mean, like, I can see the whole marketing campaign now. It's brilliant, actually. Like,
and if you see some of his previous videos of him selling products, you'll see, oh, he is selling something, dude.
I mean, it might be the perfect name for cameras for cops. Actually, I can't think of a better name. Make sure all your cops have halos on. Oh.
Here's the thing too. If we're going to talk about treating a symptom rather than the disease, let's at least put shot collars on them instead of halo cameras.
Mm-hmm. And everybody gets a remote. And all it takes to zap them is maybe if two remotes in the vicinity both hit their button at the same time, that's enough. Zap.
Yes. Yes. Now we're talking solutions to symptom.
That's right.
No, not a solution to the problem, but yes, that is a solution to the symptom.
The system currently in place is not respecting the rule of law. It has never been. We agreed on that earlier. We both agreed that the rule of law has never been respected by this government, not one day ever. Okay, so if your kid gets killed in an anarchist system, in the current system rule of law, even though it won't actually give you justice for your kid's death, the person will be arrested and taken down to the dungeon where they're going to be sexually assaulted and torture cuffs and then put in a rape cage. Now that's not justice. That's not justice for the life of your kid.
Okay,
but then the idea is
violence.
Is it though?
You know, their opinion. It's an opinion.
Oh, yeah.
When I feel like I've gotten restitution for the life of a loved one, I mean, it's going to be different for everybody. And, you know, anyways.
Yeah.
But, you know, after this, he goes to saying that in an anarchist society, the only way they're ever dealt with is through violence. after he says, well, in a rule of law society, we throw them in a dungeon and fuck them in the butt for the rest of their life, basically, right? And then,
no, because the prison guards have halos on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But no, he says, yeah, but no, in your anarchist society, it would just be immediate violence would be the result of your daughter being hit by a car.
Okay, here's another thing go ahead.
No, as opposed to non-immediate violence, later he gets fucked in prison, I guess.
And another thing, the very fears that he's describing about a free society are evidence of the amount of demand there is for these services to be handled, and are evidence that people would start companies to satisfy those demands. It's not like there's 5 people in the world that care about justice and safety. No, freaking everybody does. So there's going to be a lot of really, really smart business owners trying to solve that problem for people as best they can. And as long as they don't have that superstition that there's this one group that has to be the one that does it on pain of death and imprisonment, as long as that's gone, then we have perfect competition. It's that superstition that there's just you got to have one, you got to have a monopoly, and they're the only people that can do it. That is the poison in the entire thing.
Right, it's horrible. And then the idea is that they're going to have a trial, and then justice is going to be made when they sentence the guy to the dungeon for 10 years or 20 years, however long. But that's not working out how it's going now. But I understand the process now with the rule of law that doesn't work at all because of a bastard.
I'll admit it. I've extrapolated this out, and I won't have to for a few years since I got food and stuff. My superpower is being honest. I'll eat your ass. I will. I'm combat model, optimum self-sufficiency, probably the leader. I'll do it. I will eat your ass. That's why I want the globalists to know. I will eat your ass first.
System, but try to, if you would please, sir, how would you get justice in an anarchy system? Because you want justice for your dead kid.
I have no idea.
Then you can't support anarchism. I'll tell you.
Wait.
Okay, I want to hear what you say first.
How do you get justice in your statist system?
Well, we're currently not getting justice until we change the way the statist system, the way the state works.
Okay, so tell me then how you. I don't think you get justice for a life taken, period. But go ahead and explain to me how in a statist system you get justice.
Okay, the idea of justice would be that instead of grabbing that guy and putting him in torture cuffs, sexually assaulting him, and putting him in a rape cage, what we would do is you would start a process of negotiation with the person who needs retribution, that they can start to pay a penance for what they've done. Because you want justice for your dead kid.
I have no idea.
I rewound it too far.
You can't support anarchism. I'll tell you.
Wait. How do you get justice in your statist system?
Well, we're currently not getting justice until we change the way the statist system, the way the state works.
Okay, so tell me then how you. I don't think you get justice for a life taken, period. But go ahead and explain to me how in a statist system you get justice.
Okay, the idea of justice would be that instead of grabbing that guy and putting him in torture cuffs, sexually assaulting him, and putting him in a rape cage, what
Sorry.
we would do.
I'm so glad you have these things on demand.
Of negotiation with the person who needs retribution, that they can start to pay a penance for what they've done. Instead of putting someone in a dungeon after they killed your kid, we start a process of negotiation for restitution. But that's not happening at all. So instead, when your kid's dead,
sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, he would have to be in service to you in some way. I mean, the new system is going to work out new ways of both punishment, retribution, and forgiveness. Because if you can never forgive someone ever, then what are we? You can never be forgiven for a crime ever. And you would never forgive the guy that killed your kid. Maybe you wouldn't, but retribution would have to be paid. You would have to be somehow compensated for your loss. And that's not happening right now.
Restitution. He said retribution, but I think he meant restitution. Retribution must be paid.
Hippies? We're not hippies. We're libertarians.
Now, I do agree this is.
So how does that happen then? I'm still waiting to hear how that happens and how.
It's your job to defend anarchism here. I'm supporting rule of law and saying that the current system, while it doesn't work, we can.
No. Oh, wow. Okay. So what just happened was he asked James, give me a solution for how it will work in anarchism. You said you don't know. Then he described his system and you said, well, okay, but you're just saying that justice will happen. How's that going to happen? And he says, well, no, you're supposed to be justifying anarchism. He failed to do what he was asking you to do is what just happened there. Like he dodged the question.
And that's fair enough. But I addressed later that I never claimed that anarchy, that nobody ever gets hurt and everyone always gets justice, because I don't believe there is any system anywhere that will always guarantee that, especially since your idea of justice for your daughter being killed and my idea of justice for my daughter being killed is probably going to be different. It's very likely going to be different. And I don't know. A lot of it's arbitrary. So I think they wanted me to say that anarchy will create utopia, and I refuse to say it. And that's the answer that he wants. How is the system going to make it so that nobody ever gets hurt ever again? And basically, I never pointed it out, but basically that was essentially the straw man that throughout the entire thing is, well, James, you said that anarchy will solve all the world's problems and nobody will ever get hurt again. Wait a second, I didn't fucking say that.
Yeah,
I just said we should stop violating people's rights.
It would also be a good time for the plantation owner analogy, which I'm sure you've heard a million times, right? So like what you say is like, look, I am I'm a cop watcher. I don't know what your normal professional job is. I'm not a jurisprudence or dispute resolution professional. I don't have all the answers, but what I know is that robbing people to pay for things against their consent is immoral, is evil. And so when he continues to demand practical solutions, otherwise you're in fantasy land or otherwise your ideas are bullshit, just because you can't give practical solutions, that is not an answer to the moral challenge of what is right and wrong and good and evil. And robbing people is evil. Even if you can't describe how his daughter is going to be safe, even if you have no answer to that question, the moral argument stands first. And if he doesn't understand that, the plantation owner is a great analogy. You say, look, before the slaves were freed, and you say, look, slavery is wrong, it's immoral. And they say, yeah, but who's going to pick the cotton after you free the slaves? And the correct answer, assuming you don't have an answer, is I don't know. It doesn't fucking matter. Slavery is evil. Stop it. That's the same thing that needs to be said here. Look, I don't know I don't have all the answers to this complex system of insurance and dispute resolution and security is going to work once we're free of the government coercion. But look, government is fucking evil. Taxing people's fucking evil. Stop it. And then we'll figure out how it's done. Like back when we were freeing the slaves, no one would have predicted that we would have these massive machines that run on ancient dinosaur remains that were crushed under pressure underground for millions of years, turning into oil. No one would have been able to come up with the answer for how the cotton would actually get picked in the future once we free the slaves. That's not what's important. The important thing is slavery is evil. Stop it. Rant
I
over.
like it.
We can tweak it and we can adjust it to make it work. But your system of anarchy will always boil down to absolute violence, where there's murders and death.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that an anarchist system, you cannot get retribution for wrong that's done to you, but you're also saying that you also can't. And then I repeat his word of retribution.
Well, currently we can't get it in this system.
Well, I know. I'm talking about your system that you think should exist. Again,
no, you would be able to get it. Now, when you're talking about the death of your child, man, you may feel like you're never going to get justice. But now if we drop the back.
Oh, so the same thing I said. Okay, go on.
No, a life is a life, man. I don't see a real way to give a great pass for that. But now let's make it a little less.
So we're settled on it then. There is absolutely no system ever that's going to get anyone retribution or whatever you're looking for something like that. That's just a bad thing that happened. And, you know, we can come up with all kinds of ideas, throw them in a dungeon, rape them, kill them, you know, forgive them. But I don't
want to play the Gandalf thing again because people keep saying that.
I mean, there's no retribution for a life taken.
So you won't answer how the anarchist system would work, but let me explain how it would work. Because
he's going to tell you.
Submit jurisdiction.
I'm sure this will be perfectly genuine and not a straw man.
Because your kid's leg is broken or they're dead or whatever happened, then what would happen is you would get your cousin or your brother and go over to my house, and then you do away with me, and then my family would call their cousins and they would go to your house and do away with you. It always in an anarchist society will boil down to absolute violence as an answer for justice. Where
this is somebody that is just uneducated on the topic he's claiming knowledge over. That's all this is. He's ignorant of the topic. He hasn't done enough research. And so he's stating this absurd conclusion like anybody would want that.
I have to say, though, I think that the majority of people in our society will agree with him, which is why I need to be able to really argue and debate these points, no matter how silly and off the wall they are. Because I think you know as well as me, most people will say, Chili's right, James is a fucking psychopath. Mm-hmm. and it has to be explained to them in a way that they can comprehend it, not in a way that I can comprehend, you know? Because I get ahead, I've got to be able to put those ideas out in a way that, because a lot of people are going to listen. Obviously, he's not. And I knew that before I ever spoke to him. But a lot of people are willing to listen, but they did watch this debate discussion and say, Chili gets it. James has no effing clue. Yeah. And fair enough. You know, if that's how they feel, then it means I did a bad job of explaining my point to them in a way that they could comprehend it.
Yeah. Lily Rose says Chili is not uneducated. He is absolutely uneducated on the topic of anarchy or on libertarianism or on the topic of free society. I'm not saying he's an idiot in other areas. He might have a fucking PhD in astrophysics. I don't know. Maybe he's super educated in other areas, but I'm telling you, as someone who is super educated on this area, that he is not. He's missing a lot of background knowledge that exists there. He is literally, as Liberty After Dark in the comments very well put, he is the one in this conversation advocating violence on peaceful people. And that is something that bears bringing up. It's like, look, if a debate turns contentious, because they're not all going to be nice, no matter how many good tricks and how many, times you agree with them and how many tactics you try to keep it chill and keep their mind open, they're going to turn sideways. But look, if it's sideways, never miss an opportunity to point out who the violent motherfucker in the conversation is and who the peaceful one is. He is advocating violence on peaceful people, justified by magic scribbles on some magic toilet paper in some building because somebody named Rousseau said so. He is the violent one in this conversation. You are the peaceful one. If anything needs to be justified, it's not peace. It is the violence that he's advocating. I keep going on rants, James. I'm sorry. Just tell me to shut up and play the fucking video.
No. This is what I came here for. And I think that hopefully there'll be a lot of people in the comments also that, we're coming from a perspective where you and I, we agree, we get this, but how do we convey this to people who don't? I want to be able to effectively to people who don't.
Yeah.
And I think that your point there, your rant is perfect. That at this point I should be pointing out you're the violent one, because there's multiple times here in the next few minutes where he starts pointing out, and he did it just now. He always results in immediate violence. Mm. And someone, I believe it was Lackluster, actually said to me afterwards, why didn't you point out that statism automatically always results in immediate violence? But not only, he claims that my daughter getting run over would automatically result in me and my brother and my cousin going and killing this guy. I mean, that's a hell of an assumption, but okay, fair enough. Let's say that that's true. With statism, you not using your turn signal results in people using violence against you, and nobody's been harmed in this situation. So I mean, I don't know. I guess I should be pointing out the gun in the room at this point a lot more, like you said.
I want to keep talking to Lily Rose in the chat. And Lily, I want to say, I'm not sideways. I'm perfectly happy. I'm chill. I'm not coming down hard on you. But I think you're the only one I've seen in chat that's kind of defending him a little bit, which means that you're important to me. No. I'm not calling you out to drama or bash on you or literally anything. I'm engaging with you because you're the only one kind of disagreeing here, which is really valuable, right? Because you're bringing up counterpoints that we can address. So please don't feel, I don't know, bullied or attacked, right? You said it scrolled off the freaking... There we go. They say that they don't agree that he wants violence. Well, I'm going to prove to you precisely that he does. And it's wrapped up in, like James called out earlier when he refused to answer and he dodged the question, how is he going to fund his security services? He's not going to advertise on commercials. He's not going to ask you to subscribe to his Halo security service. If you try and compete with it, I bet he's going to send armed men to your door to stop you from competing with his Halo security service monopoly. And if you refuse to pay, I bet he's going to send armed men to your door and it's going to call it taxation. And he's going to have a lot of fancy, pretty words and magic spells to talk about the 10th Amendment and the Constitution on why that violence against you is justified for when he comes to extort you to pay for his Halo security. But that doesn't make it not violence. He thinks it's justified. But he doesn't disagree that it's backed by violence. He just thinks it's justified violence. So I think, Lily, if you back up and look at it, even from that much, he agrees that there should be violence. I don't think that's in contention. He just thinks it's justified violence. And we're saying, obviously, it's not. So I don't think it's fair to say that he doesn't want violence. He is specifically prescribing violence. He just thinks it's okay and justified and moral because it's on the paper that dead people signed. Okay, I told you this was going to take a while to get through, James. I'm sorry. It's running long. It's running long.
I'm enjoying it. Are you?
I'm loving it. Yeah.
A rule of law system in a better system using rule of law with transparency, we could actually work towards getting retribution and getting justice. But again, I can defend my rule of law saying that the system doesn't work as intended and we should tweak it, but you can't defend your anarchist system.
Do you know what anarchy really means? All it means is that we respect the rights of others. It means it means that I'm not above you and that I never will be, and that there's no magical powder or fairy dust that's going to put me above you.
So then how do you
keep talking about this rule of law? What does the rule of law mean to you?
So the rule of law means that it's listed that if you violate someone's rights, here are the exact processes to get justice for what's happened to you. And if we just scale it back away from death and we just go to a broken leg, then we can start to talk about what that retribution should be. Right now, when you talk about losing your kid, there's just a hard argument there. But your system of anarchy, where no one's above you and you don't have to submit to jurisdiction. Okay, well then, how do you get justice for your kid's broken leg, or for the guy driving 90 and you've warned him 20 times not to drive through your neighborhood at 90? How do you get justice?
All right. So the argument is because you want things to be rainbows and butterflies, you're willing to violate the rights of other people. Is that it?
No, I'm not against the non-aggression principle, the NAP. I believe the NAP's a utopian idea that will never work, because if you push me too hard physically, I'll beat the shit out of you, right? So you understand that violence sometimes is going to be a reaction. If I come to your home where your wife and children are and I smack your kid in the head, I bet you that James is going to come outside and whoop my...
So he doesn't know what the non-aggression principle is, and yet he pretends to speak against anarchism.
Right. And here's the thing. There are a lot of things that I didn't entirely know during this discussion. And I believed that he understood the non-aggression principle because I know, has spent hours on the phone with Brian from High Impact Flicks. Are you familiar with him?
Yes.
He spent hours having discussions on the phone with Brian from High Impact Flicks, and Brian has in detail explained to him the non-aggression principle, He's explained to him far better than I ever could have discussed this with him in this debate, what we're actually talking about. He's stupid. He's playing dumb. He's pretending he knows when he knows well. And that was this was the point where I really realized, like I said, I already knew going in, I'm not going to change this guy's mind. Yeah. He doesn't listen to anything or anyone. But at this point, it's gotten so ridiculous. It's like, dude, you are intentionally deceiving people. You know what it means. I know you know what it means. You know what it means. But you're going to define it to you again.
That's interesting background. Yeah, go ahead.
When he wanted me to come back and have another discussion with him, I was going, well, why? You're absolutely fucking deceptive. What would be the point of that? So, I mean, again, we could whip our dicks out and, throw them on the table and pretend, one's bigger than the other, whatever. Yeah. But what is the actual constructive point of that if you're going to lie to yourself and everyone else?
So you really think that he was lying right there, totally misrepresenting the non-aggression principle? Because that was...
At that time, I didn't know it for sure. Later, I went and talked to Brian, and it was explained to him for hours. He's had probably 6 or 7 hours of discussions with him about this. In detail, explain the non-aggression principle means that you do not initiate violence, but that you have every right to defend yourself against those who initiate violence against you. I can't say for sure. I can't get inside of the guy's head. And even though he's been told time and time and time again what it was, I can't say for sure that he listened. Maybe he just doesn't listen, or maybe he intentionally is deceptive and he does know what's going on. Okay. But he's been told.
Well, for anyone watching, obviously, the non-aggression principle doesn't mean that you go to somebody's house and slap them. On account of it saying non-aggression principle. So, just something to think about.
But I guess that would be you and
what?
I want to say that I think he's trying to say that the non-aggression principle is pacifism. In other words, I'm going to come smack your kid up. What are you going to do? I don't think that you're going to adhere to your non-aggression principle, but what he's kind of referring to is pacifism, I guess.
Yeah. Other words for the non-aggression principle would be the golden rule, or don't start none, won't be none, or fuck around and find out.
Initiating violence.
What I'm saying is violence is a part of life. Violence is a part of life. There's going to be violent men and women in the world always. That'll never change. Yep. But the difference with the rule of law and anarchy is that there can be a system in place that respects the rule of law and gets justice for how you've been wronged. Whereas in anarchy, you'll never get that, ever.
I don't think we get that under your system. And you keep saying that. I mean, I thought that we lived in a system of rule of law right now. And it's kind of the same argument that I hear commies say all the time. Communism would work, but this just isn't real communism.
No, this is not.
Speaking of commies, Aaron Queen in the comments, everyone. If he's starving and he thinks he'll die, he's going to steal from you because his personal needs outweigh your right to be whole in your property, ladies and gentlemen.
Rule of law. This is tyranny. This is
communism has entered the chat.
This is not rule of law, because the 4 principles of rule of law, the first principle is that government and its agents are subject to the rule of law as well and live under, but that's not happening.
Wait, so all men are created equal then?
All men are created equal. However, when you have a rule of law system, then someone has to be an authority. And with an anarchist system,
is there somebody above somebody else then that has more or less rights?
No, they don't have more or less rights. They're working as an authority for the state to administer rights protection and justice. Okay. So when your kid gets hit by the car, then there's a process to get justice for what happened to your child. Whereas an anarchist system, without that process and jurisdiction, you will take justice into your own hands. If I hit your kid, James, and there's no one to call, then you're going to take justice into your own hands.
There's always someone to call. See,
there's not.
I know that statists always look for government to their solution to everything, but what is that doing for you, Chili? What is it doing for you?
This is not.
I mean, who are you going to call right now? You're going to call the police, and they're going to come. And now, not only is your daughter dead, but you're also tased, and your dog is shot. Right?
I mean, never called tyranny into my life. We're not living.
Not with the halos, though.
No, the halo will change all that.
Yeah, dogs' lives saved. Think of the dogs' lives.
Under a system
you
of
don't-
rule of law.
Okay, but you're
This is
you're
not a
talking about
system
some
of law.
fantasy system where
A
people
fantasy.
will be good. Where people will be good, and you'll appoint them to magical positions above you, and every time that you call them, they'll do good things and they'll never do harm.
Okay, so now we can get into the future of what peace officers and upholding your rights should mean, but you still have not defended. I want to point this out. You have not defended how an anarchy system would work when things go real bad.
He's putting the burden of proof on you, which is taking the peaceful position rather than him taking the positive position of justifying actual violence, acting on people in control.